Thank you for joining us this morning for the September 26, 2024 Montecito Community Center Committee Special Meeting. Before the meeting is called to order, I would like to point out a few house rules to assist the committee, staff members, and members of the public to successfully participate in the meeting. For today's meeting, Zoom is being used to allow public participation with this Community Center Committee Special Meeting. For those using Zoom to participate, there are two icons, chat and raise hand. Please use chat only to report technical issues such as being unable to hear a committee member speaking. Please use raise hand to be recognized by the chair and enable to speak to the committee. Only attendees using the Zoom application can use the raise hand option to comment. Participants calling in from a telephone will only be able to listen and cannot provide feedback or public comment. Lastly, when we're not all in the same room, all the votes in the meeting must be taken by roll call.
I'd like to call the special meeting of the Community Center Committee to order at 9:01 p.m. Let's start with the roll call.
Public member Harrington? Here. Public member M. Allen is absent. Public member L. Allen?
Present.
Public member Reganzi is absent. Public member Ward? Here. Commissioner Zeiler is not here. Commissioner Conley?
Here.
Councilmember Megachuk is not here. And Mayor Wolsheimer.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
So we haven't had a meeting in quite a while. And since there have been some developments, I thought it was appropriate to call the team together again, just to give an update. We're not making any decisions today. This is a purely informational meeting. But Daryl will have a presentation on what has happened since our last meeting. So you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning and good to see you all again. It has been a while. Long thought we should pass out name tags, but at least we got the nameplates in front of us. Thanks for coming today. Glad to have some participation. Long story short, instead of going through read through the report that you've seen, I'd like to just briefly take a snapshot of where we have been and where we are today. If you recall, several years ago, we had a plan that was presented to council here with an expansion of the project. And at that time, council chose not to fund that project. So we came back this past year and redesigned that with a lot of input from council person Megachuk, who's not here today. And we brought that to council a few months ago. And if you recall, that project came in about $2 million, which was about $1 million more than what I think this body was hoping for, as others were to be more fiscally responsible. So we took direction from council to go back to the drawing board and from this team right here. If you recall, I believe your direction was we need something that is cost effective, something that's within a budget, something that we can afford and still can perform the duties that we wanted the project to perform at that community center where people can meet, a safe place to land in case of an emergency, renewable energy options that were on it. So we've come back today and shown you what the scaled down versions are, two versions of the project from your direction and council's direction. One is the more expensive one is lowering the floor to a single level elevation. So if you recall, there's two elevations in it now from the post office. As you walk in the front, there's a low section and an upper section. So the first option is gonna be lowering that all to one single level. As you can see, an entry point right in the front. And we've reduced the kitchen down to a kitchenette and provided storage and bathrooms in that first option. That would be the more expensive of the two. And even the more inexpensive option would be to not lower the upper floor, but to keep that and use the top section for a meeting room with a kitchenette, a bathroom, and potentially using a large storage and maybe even a CERT option. If this option is looked at for providing that storage and operation there. So what we've done is we've got these plans back from the architect just this last week. So they're still fresh off the printer. Our building department has looked through them. There's a few comments they had. The architect seems to think that she can get those refinished for us by the end of this week, which means that we can put our package together the following week and get that out on the street for a bid. Bid process is a minimal 2 weeks by state law. Once we get that out on the street for 2 weeks, we bring that back in. Of course, we evaluate the bids, see who's responsive and responsible. Make sure they can actually do the job and they're not just somebody who threw in a bid here. That they do have a track record. And then at that point, we would provide a staff report back to council and show council, hey, this is the price tag of option A. This is the price tag of option B. Do you want to move forward on this? Financially speaking, one of the questions that came up at the last council meeting was, do we still qualify for the $500,000 grant from SVCE? Diana and I called and talked to them this past week, and they said technically she believes that we do still, because we're still gonna provide photovoltaic, the solar panels on top, the battery storage on the center. We're getting rid of any gas, so we're still tapping the gas, not using gas any longer. But she said she needed to get with her staff and make sure that our reduced footprint will still qualify. So we're waiting, hopefully today, to confirm that that $500,000 is still applicable to these two plans. And if not, the question is, well, what would we have to add back to it for the bid to make sure we can qualify the 500? And then when we do get those final bids, the council can look at the financial constraints to see if that's something that they're willing to agree to or not. Now, we do have the $500,000 SVCE and another $170,000 grant to the park. So we're talking $670,000 that we have in money. Hopefully, if this comes in $1 million or less, then council's gonna have to look at about $300,000, commitment out of our reserves. And they're gonna have to look at our finances and see if that's something they want to do or not. They may or they may not, but all we can do is bring the hard numbers from the contractor to say, hey, this is what the going rate is. And unfortunately, as you all know, who's ever involved in real estate right now, the prices are still sky high. From our first bid, 3 years ago, the prices are up, 80% of what they were before. So, yeah, it's just crazy right now. So every year that we put this off and we try to save money and scale down, we're fighting that battle of the costs going up. So hopefully this will bring us to a point of, do we move forward or not? One of the other things that we had that the council had us add on was, why don't we look at perhaps the kitchenette and anything else in here to use as an add alternate for the bid? So when we get our bids back in, we'll get the basic plan. And then the kitchen won't cost this much. And so you can look at that breakdown. So if they didn't want to do much of anything except restore the building, we could look at just the restoration of the building to make it operable again. That's an option as well. Only problem with that is we may not be able to qualify for some of the grants. So there's the balance. How do we still get the $500,000 grant and comply with their requirements and do this for the least amount of cost for the city? So I hope that kind of explains where we've been, where we're at, like, the hills that we have to climb right now. There still are unknowns as far as price goes and how much the council is willing to contribute to the completion of the project. But I'd be glad to answer any questions that y'all may have.
Yeah. Daryl, in terms of function, is there a difference between the 1-story or the 1 level and the 2 level? I mean, I understand from a point of view of convenience, 1 level is more convenient, but in terms of the functions that we were thinking of, is there any functional difference between the 2 levels?
I don't believe there's any functional difference. There's capacity difference only. You have a larger meeting room on one, since the entire upstairs is now completely meeting. The other one's gonna be shared with a kitchen and bathroom. So it'll be a smaller, but the functions will remain the same.
The reason I was asking is, as you said, if it's all 1 level, it's gonna be more expensive. And I was trying to figure out, would we be buying anything other than convenience for whatever those extra dollars are? And I think no. So this group, in terms of a recommendation in the city council that makes the decision, we really deciding how many taxpayer dollars that they wish to pay for convenience. Because I'm assuming in terms of the various grants, whether it's 1 level or 2 level, we will have to jump through whatever hoops to get those grants.
Right.
So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
With regard to the big grant,
Mhm.
should they decide that we haven't quite done enough? Is it possible to have them adjust the amount of the grant?
We'll have to ask that question once we get our answer. That's a good question. We'll ask that question.
Because when I look at it seems like, we're doing this more of an event center than a community center as described by Los Gatos.
Right.
And I'm wondering if there's a happy medium where we can retain some of the grant. Because I think $500,000 is a big number
Mhm.
for this, if I were sitting on their side of the table.
We'll definitely fight for whatever dollars we can get when we come to that discussion.
Thank you.
The intent of the SBCE, of course, is energy savings, energy conservation, right? And the main ingredient of that conservation grant would be the solar and the battery backup and using no gas. That was the main meat of the requirements of that. Now, the application that we provided was a much more elaborate application we provided with big events, hosting potential, what was that, Loisy? Cooking events, teaching people different cooking items, some very upgraded, as you saw, and you asked us to downgrade some very upgraded items, which we may not need for a community center. So it was a very, as the SBCE staff told us, it was a very aggressive application that we put in, more than perhaps that we needed to get the grant, but it was nice to see that this elaborate plan that we could have had to pull off, which was with our last plan set that you saw, that was the expansion plan that we couldn't afford, so. Ma'am,
So when you got the previous bids in, what were there I'm sure there were line items for what the solar and all of that infrastructure that were required to do. What was the price tag on that?
we didn't break that out in the last plan set, but we will in this one, so you can see it, because if we decide not to go that route,
Right,
then we pull that off, we pull the kitchenette out, and here's just putting the structure back in operation.
right.
Period. We're putting drywall up, we're putting a bathroom in, lights back in, make it ADA accessible, and it's just back in operation, nothing elaborate. So we're gonna try to pull those out for you, so you'll see those, and here's just a basic shell put back together, operational, with a kitchenette and with the solar as extras. But if you decide not to do anything with that, here's your bottom number, you may lose the grant, can you afford that? And that's what council has to say.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
is there already a bathroom there?
There was one.
So
It's
it would
been-
have to be remodeled?
Yes,
And then the second question is, how big is the step that's the difference in the height?
it's about this height.
It's like this
Oh,
big.
Yeah.
It's a,
Three or four
it's big
steps.
stuff, Jane, yeah.
Oh, I guess I was.
There's stairs, but I think 3 steps.
Yeah,
Up there.
So to make it ADA, you'd have to have a ramp.
or
No,
into the other side.
yeah, the way they have it divided if they do that, and so there's no connection to the two spaces.
Ah, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? No, then let me open it up for public comments. Then I'm seeing that there are 2 people here in the room. Please come forward and introduce yourself. Lisa.
Good morning,
Yeah,
I'm
overcome
Lisa
your
Sharon.
shyness.
I live on Rose Avenue. Thank you, Tom, for asking the question about the grant, because I also wonder if we could get like a partial grant
Absolutely.
to cover what we can do. I also still want to know what's it going to cost to operate this community center? We have the cost to build, then we have the cost to furnish, which I don't think is included in that $1 million.
Correct.
And then we have the daily cost of operating it. And I know it's come up in council, but I don't think a study has been done yet to pull together any kind of numbers for that. And then I wonder, with this community center, are we gonna end up opening this and having it be used by people who don't even live in Monte Sereno? Because I don't think the Monte Sereno people are very excited about it. And that's what I wanted to convey.
Good morning. I'm Eduardo Laber. I live in Viewfield around the corner. And I'm also one of the leaders for the CERT teams in Monte Sereno. were based on North Santa Cruz in days, and now eventually supposedly there was going to be another one here. Just want to make it clear, nobody in the CERT program requested any extra facilities here. We requested, or we kind of were in favor of the proposal of the city council to add another shared space in Monte Sereno, although really the area that needs it more is the south part of Highway 9. So eventually I expect to be moved to a better location. But even here, we don't even have the people to maintain it. So this is really a way of incentivizing neighbors to become trained and eventually help. Well, right now, we only have the one in North Santa Cruz. So having more facilities here, we don't see a point. Yeah, if you put extra space for eventuality, it's fine. We'll, maybe there will be used, but we're not requesting that at all. Then as a regular citizen of Monte Sereno, not a CERT, I don't think that even spending a dime on this makes sense. If it was up to me, I would, maybe rent it to a business or even do a coffee shop, although maybe neighbors are not going to be very happy, some of them. Maybe an office building, whatever, something. When I brought this up with Steve Leonardis a while back, paraphrasing, I understood that it was going to be almost no cost for the city, that there were plenty of grants, and that he was going to do fundraising for the rest. I've seen a start of some fundraising effort, but I don't think it went anywhere. Then, as the previous neighbor said, I don't think anyone in Monte Sereno, or maybe a handful of people in Monte Sereno, are interested in having a community center. People in Monte Sereno don't move here for having extra city services. We just want the city to do the absolute minimum and live our lives. So we're not looking for extra services. So I guess that's, you get the point. So thank you.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
One of the signs has a designated area for CERT in the design. Would that be preferable over the shed? Or are they
No,
same?
no, the shed is done with a lot of things inside, like the communications and other things, and we kind of, in the effort of standardizing it through the 13 or so sheds in Los Gatos and Monte Sereno, so no. No. Thank you.
Seeing nobody else here in the room, is there anybody online? No, thank you. Any further comments or questions about this?
My comment is that when you look at this, and it looks to me to be, 900, 800, 900 square feet of usable space. Do we need to redefine what we're really trying to do? Because I had mentioned that if you look at the scope of what Los Gatos is proposing, and it's, and it looks like it's delightful and a big wish list, but a lot of private rooms and different opportunities, and this doesn't provide that. So is it really a community center, or is it just additional meeting space? Generally, because to address what Lisa Shannon was saying, the cost of operation in one regard might be more expensive, whereas if it were just a furnished meeting room with a key, it might be a lot cheaper to operate. So before you can define what it costs to manage and operate this, probably should rethink what we're really going to use it for. Or they're huge, they might be hugely different numbers.
So that's an excellent point, and I've been thinking about that too. What are we trying to do here? And, so maybe we should put it on the agenda for one of the future meetings. After the bid comes back, and we look at the numbers, the council looks at the numbers, we will call another meeting to discuss. But I think you have an excellent point.
Very good.
What are we trying to do here? No public comment over. I'll let you comment.
That's a quick, yeah, what I was telling Steve Leonardo is when we talk is that something like this is a business plan. Any business will make a business plan before spending anything. And I haven't seen a business plan. The business plan should say exactly how is it going to be used, like you said. And if it's going to be money and make money, then it has to show why they think that money is going to be there. And anyway, so a business plan should be a first step. So thank you.
Yeah, I would like to follow up on what Commissioner Conlon said. The youth commission, uses this room. And so the question is, what will we do with that space that can't be done in this space? And in terms of having facilities for emergencies and everything. So I think that's a very good question of, what's the purpose of an additional space to this space? Is it that, this space is, because in terms of everything else, we already have this right here. So I think, we should address, what is the need for an additional space that, whether it's for meeting rooms or for emergencies, in terms of charging your computer or your iPhone or something that can't be done in the space we have right now.
One further question, since we're talking about, I love your point about renaming or whatever it is we're doing. Should we get a bit on just raising the thing and plan? I mean, really, if we're not gonna use it, if we've all come to the decision that, okay, this is just not gonna work because we already have the space, maybe we should get a bit on just raising that and then planting some trees and benches and something. Is that an option?
We can make it an option. We can recommend to make it an option.
Like in the future, we
Yeah.
should maybe think of that
Yeah.
if what you're saying, if we can
Right.
accommodate what we
It's
need
a good
here.
point, and it has been brought up before, but thank you for doing that again. So let's keep that as an option, sort of the extreme option, all the way from a very expensive community center to an additional meeting room to just getting rid of it altogether.
Pickleball court.
Yeah, one of my, I said it before, one of my favorite quotations is attributed to the late John Foster Dulles, and younger people won't know who John Foster Dulles is, but some of us know. And he said sometimes in life you need to quote, agonizing reappraisal, close quote. And following up on what Jane Ward said, I think we should, one of the options should be agonizing reappraisal of whether we just have some grass and a few benches and decide that we don't need to spend taxpayer dollars for a structure that really wouldn't do anything for the community more than this existing structure does for the community.
Good point. We will add that to the agenda of one of the future meetings. But I think we can't really make any decisions or any recommendations until we have the numbers, it's back, the numbers. Cut out, yeah. Actually, once.
My late father, if you allow people here, my late father always said that numbers cut out the bullshit.
Mayor, I didn't want to use that.
I'm just a former mayor. So I can't.
How do you spell the bull? Oh, never mind.
Mayor, can I make a comment? I really like the topic that you brought up about operations, the cost of operations. What would help staff is if this body would come up with what you want to do with it if we build it, because it's hard for me to give you an operational number when I don't know what you want to do it for.
What the business plan is.
True,
Yeah.
but we need direction by our leaders of the city to tell us, let's do these A through F functions, and then we can look at what that might cost, but without us knowing what you want to use it for, I really can't give you a number. Sure. So that would be very helpful for staff, and also to answer Lisa's question, SVCE does have new grants out for operation costs, so it's potentially that we can apply for that as well and cover our operation costs, but that's up here as well.
Oh, it should be, Mr. Mayor. In terms of grants, maybe there's some modifications we can do of this building from an energy or other point of view that might also qualify for some grants. Why does it have to be a brand new structure? I don't know. Can we explore whether we get some of the grants, just doing some modifications of the city hall building.
We could, Mr. Allen, one of the challenges there is that we do have a gas generator, backup generator up there. That would have to go most likely if we went to that SPC type of grant situation.
I'd just like to look at the numbers.
Absolutely.
Any further comment? No? In that case,
I move to adjourn.
sorry.
I move to adjourn.
I second Commissioner Conlon's motion to adjourn.
I just want to say, at some point, probably about a month or so from now,
Yes.
we'll call another meeting with update on numbers, hopefully. And then we'll go through all the scenarios, all the options, make a list and go from there. All right? So I will adjourn the meeting at 9:25 a.m.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's nice seeing everybody.